So, how many times have you been having a conversation and somebody asks, or you ask someone, what's the craziest thing you've eaten, or what's the wildest thing you've done? Okay, and people will tell you they've eaten certain foods, they've jumped out of a plane, right? They've done this ridiculous thing. But one of the grossest things that you will do and craziest things that you would do is commit to growth. Well, let's talk about it. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah, and man, it has truly been a very sobering and honest season of growth in so many ways. That's why they always say, be careful what you ask for because you will get it. And I think, the conversation around growth, having a growth mindset, it's it can be very Hollywood sometimes, the way we talk about growth. It can be very Hollywood in the way that we approach it and the ways that we talk about it because growth, it sounds great. It's like, oh yeah, healthier relationships. Oh yeah, job promotion. Oh yeah, boundaries. Oh yeah, give it to me. Absolutely. More money, right? A more peaceful life. Yes, absolutely. I want to grow. But see, those are the results of growth. That is not necessarily the process. Because growth is your ability to be uncomfortable for a consistent period of time. And as humans, we do not like being uncomfortable for an extended period of time. But I think what's also important to realize, the thing about growth is that as uncomfortable as it may be, it doesn't mean that you're in danger, right? A lot of times we align discomfort with danger or something that's bad for you. But growth will require you to be in unfamiliar territory, right? Growth will require you to do things a little bit differently to get very different results, okay? One of the things I've realized even in my work and practice is that sometimes growth, the fear of growth, the fear of being uncomfortable will show up in very small ways. Think about something as simple as avoiding a conversation. One of the things I've seen a million times is when, somebody finally reaches that age or stage in life where they have to now make their own doctor's appointments or dentist appointments. And they're like, man, well, my mom used to always do this for me. I don't want to do that. I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel good doing that. Okay. It's growth, right? It requires a different pattern of behavior to get a different outcome. And a lot of times, our immediate response to anything that's different is to kind of close in. Growth requires some level of expansion. I will say for myself, the year so far, this year has been nothing but transitions, nothing but growth, nothing but expansion. And even when we expand, we have to realize expansion a lot of times means you have to take up space. Okay, and as you are taking up space, you think of a balloon, the more air you blow into it so it can float, the bigger it gets, the wider it gets. And expansion for us can sometimes look like we need room. We need room to expand. And sometimes we are not in the spaces that really allow that. And the spaces can look like relationships where you are functioning in a very unhealthy dynamic, right? To your doing and the other person, even in a job space, right? Pursuing your goals and your dreams, you might be in this very confined space that you feel comfortable adjusting to. You might feel very comfortable there because it doesn't really trip your nervous system that much. It doesn't really trip your anxiety, okay? And, it was a conversation that I used to have growing up a lot, with my mom. She used to always say, don't play it small. And I was looking at the things that I was doing. I've looked at the things that I've accomplished, and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm playing it small. Like, I'm doing big things. I'm doing these things that scare me. But after a while, these things stopped scaring me. The reason why is because I was doing just enough to do something different, but not doing it to the magnitude that I know I'm probably capable of, or I don't even know that I'm capable of, because that is so uncomfortable, right? So when you think about what it means to grow, ask yourself, how often have I been uncomfortable? And let's say you are in an uncomfortable situation, right? You're in this uncomfortable dynamic with another person, and there's something that they say that makes you feel uncomfortable. Do you speak up? Okay? Or do you pretend that everything is cool? Right? Because one of those will require you to expand a little bit. The other one will keep you in this space where the other person feels comfortable. Right? Sometimes we have to also understand too is when we are looking to seek comfort consistently, it may be also preventing other people from growing also, right? We're not having these conversations. We're not saying what we need. We are not keeping firm in our standards. We ourselves are not even creating certain patterns that would indicate a certain level of growth and discomfort. All right. Growth is so funny. It really, it can be such a thing of, let's say it's the sheep in wolves clothing, right? Versus the other way around. The reason why is because, a sheep is typically the thing that you desire, right? It's more of the lamb. It's more of something that we appropriate in culture. And sometimes it is in wolves clothing, which means that it seems a little bit more dangerous. Okay? It seems a little bit more alarming. But that's not always it. There are so many, if I could think about this year from the 1st of January up until now, there have been a lot of necessary moments of discomfort, and even still, that have required me to do things very differently and force myself, subject myself to discomfort to get to where I am. And it's awesome because when you realize that you have been growing or you realize certain things don't feel good anymore, it's not so much just recognizing that feeling. That's a big step, right? Awareness and acknowledgement of the circumstances. But where you really get to the growth point is when you do something about it. Okay? Like I say, there's something as simple as having a conversation sometimes that will give people the craziest anxiety, right? The craziest doubt. And a lot of times it's like, well, what am I actually scared of? I don't even know. I just know that this doesn't feel good to me. But if you ask a person, hey, do you want to grow? Do you want better? They're like, hell yeah. Yes, I want to grow. It's like, okay, are you willing to be uncomfortable? Yeah, it depends, right? And when we talk about being uncomfortable, it can be very subjective, right? The level of discomfort each person has is not across the board. Like somebody may love being in a crowded room, having conversations with every person they come across, and they're good at it, right? They thrive in that space. And then other people, the idea of talking to one person may destroy them, right? And it's not so much about forcing somebody to be different. It's just recognizing, well, what are my intentions? If a person realizes that they're in a space where conversations are required, but they're so fearful of them, well, it's like, well, do you want to grow in where you are? And the answer is yes. Okay, cool. So this is a requirement. Otherwise, you continue to exist in this and you kind of hope that things just happen through osmosis, but it never happens that way. Okay? I've been learning so much about what growth is lately. And when I tell you, it has forced me to sit, it has forced me to say things out loud, it has forced me to have a conversation, it's forced me to just stop, it's forced me to just not think and move forward. Like growth is such this thing that is constantly flowing, okay? It's constantly going through these transitions with us. But you have to remember, growth is never against you, it's always for you. One of the things I started thinking about with the concept of life, right? if my life or if your life was a person, another human, that would be your best friend, right? And when we think about our best friend, a true best friend will not have any ill will for you. It will only have the best intentions, and you will have the best intentions for them, right? That's your best friend. That's your rider. So when we think about life, your life would not conspire against you. Your life will want the best for you because they are a participant of it and in it. Okay? What you do in life will dictate how well your life goes or not. So when you think about your life conspiring against you, or you think that life, your life itself is always setting you up, I want you to kind of start to reframe that. Why would my own life be against me? Why would I be against myself? What benefit do I get from that? Okay? When it comes to growing, it will require you to outgrow some things first. And I know for myself, sometimes it's just a perspective, a mindset shift. Okay? If you doubt certain things going a certain way, well, how do you know? Have you tried? And let's say you did try, okay, it didn't work out one time. But how many times have you continued to try, especially if it's something necessary? Now, this is very different than continuing to try in spaces and relationships where there doesn't seem to be any growth. It's just a repetitive pattern, right? And you keep trying to get something from there that doesn't exist, okay? That's you creating chaos, and that's you actually limiting your growth, okay? But to try something a couple of times to build more tolerance for it and even a healthier skill set is a little bit different. Think about going to the gym. Let's say you go to the gym, or I would go to the gym, and some days I lift 30 pounds, and then I try to go for the 50 pound. I'm like, oh man, I can't do that, But we know inevitably lifting heavier weight, your muscles are going to get bigger, okay? So I keep trying at 30, and I slowly work my way up. I slowly subject myself to a certain level of discomfort to improve, until finally I hit 50, and 50 feels a little bit easy. Okay, well, are my muscles still building with 50? No. All right, well, let's try it a little bit different. Let's take that same 50 pounds and let's try doing a different level of reps and sets. Okay, let's try to compound it with a different workout. Okay, sometimes growth will look like taking the same information and applying it in a different way, okay, to get a different outcome. And once you're able to do that, okay, you will understand that growth requires me to be uncomfortable. It doesn't necessarily require me to be unsafe. It requires me to be uncomfortable. I will admit it can also be very frustrating, okay, because sometimes it seems like, well, I'm doing all of this and nothing's changing. But you're probably changing in the process. I can promise you. You never come out the same person when you start to immerse yourself or commit to this idea of like, I want a different life. I want something different. Okay. Growth may not always feel good. It may not always look good, but it definitely looks good on you. Okay. So I want you to just remember and ask yourself and remind yourself, like, how much do I want things to change? How committed have I been to discomfort? Okay. What is important to me? Comfort or growth? What's more important to me at this moment in time? And will I be okay with what I have while saying I desire more? Is that something I can be content with? Is that something I can live with? And there's no wrong answer, it's just the honest answer. Okay? Just remember, growth will require you to be uncomfortable. Okay? It will require you to expand, which means that it will require you to create more room. And sometimes that's clearing your space, right? And I know we talk about cut culture and removing people and doing all this so quickly, but sometimes that's the easier thing to do, right? That's the easier route to take because we haven't had a conversation, or we haven't been willing to let our guard down a little bit. We haven't been willing to be vulnerable. I realize sometimes people say that, yeah, we grew apart. It's like, no, some people didn't grow up enough to sustain the relationship in a healthy way, right? But a lot of times we all want to be perceived in a certain way, so we will use different things to keep us in a place of comfort. Okay, I'm comfortable looking like the good guy, or I'm comfortable feeling like the martyr. All right. Growth will require you to feel a little gross. Just like eating your vegetables. It may not always taste the greatest, but it is the most beneficial. Okay? And as I say this to you, I say it to myself. How much have you grown this year? If you can look at this year so far, what has required you to grow, to be uncomfortable, all right, to release, to hold on? I think that genuinely is something to be mindful of. Okay, and as you go through life, and I want you to remember, growth, let's say it has three components to it: discomfort, unfamiliarity, okay, discomfort, unfamiliarity, and consistency. Those things are necessary to get the results of growth that you desire. So I just want you to think about that, all right? Growth will require you to be uncomfortable, but it will not create a level of unsafety for you. And your life is not conspiring against you. It is one of the best friends you have. So think of it that way. If you feel gross, you're probably growing. But grow through it. You got this, all right? Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And take flight.